I think my mom is depressed and copes with drinking. How can I help her when she refuses help and my dad has tried everything? I never thought I'd be in this situation, worried sick about my mom while feeling completely helpless. My mom has always been the rock in our family, the one who held everything together with her no-nonsense attitude and an almost magical ability to make chaos feel like it had a rhythm. Growing up, it was like she had a sixth sense for knowing what everyone needed, whether it was a pep talk, a warm hug, or just a quick laugh to lighten the mood. But lately, it feels like that magic is slipping away. It started subtly. At first, I thought she was just tired. Who wouldn't be? Between managing a demanding job, dealing with my dad's health issues, and juggling the usual family drama, she had plenty on her plate. She began spending more time alone in her room after dinner, claiming she just needed to unwind. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, everyone deserves a little space, right? But then I noticed the wine. Now, my mom has always been a casual wine drinker. A glass or two with dinner on weekends, maybe a celebratory toast at special occasions. Nothing unusual. But over the past few months, those occasional glasses turned into a nightly ritual. The bottles started piling up in the recycling bin, and her unwinding sessions stretched later and later into the night. The change wasn't just in her habits, it was in her eyes. They lost their usual spark, that quick wit and sharp focus that made her, well, her. She became quieter, more withdrawn, and when she did talk, it often felt like she was forcing herself to make small talk just to avoid any deeper conversations. I brought it up with my dad, hoping maybe he'd have some insight or a plan to fix this. But he just sighed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of a burden he clearly didn't know how to carry. "Your mom's been going through a lot," he said one night after dinner. He looked older than I remembered, the lines on his face deeper and more pronounced. "I've tried talking to her, suggesting therapy, cutting back on work, even taking a vacation, but she just brushes me off. Says she's fine. But I don't know, kiddo. I think she's struggling more than she wants to admit." That was the first time I felt the gnawing pit of helplessness in my stomach. If Dad couldn't get through to her, how could I? I started paying closer attention. I noticed the way she barely touched her food at dinner, how her laughter, when it came at all, sounded hollow, like she was playing a part she no longer believed in. And the drinking, it wasn't just wine anymore. I found empty vodka bottles hidden in the pantry one day when I was looking for cereal. I confronted her about it. I'd rehearsed the conversation in my head 100 times, trying to find the perfect balance of concern and non-judgment. "Mom, are you okay?" I asked one evening when I caught her pouring another glass of wine after dinner. She looked up at me, startled, as if she hadn't realized I was still in the room. "Of course, sweetheart," she said with a forced smile. "Why wouldn't I be?" I gestured toward the glass in her hand. "It's just, you've been drinking a lot lately. And you seem, I don't know, different. I'm worried about you." Her smile faltered, and for a brief moment, I saw something raw and vulnerable flash across her face. But then she shook her head, her expression hardening. "I'm fine," she said firmly. "Everyone's entitled to a little downtime, aren't they? You don't need to worry about me." But how could I not worry? I tried talking to my dad again, but he just shrugged helplessly. "I've said my piece," he told me. "She's not going to change unless she wants to. And right now, I don't think she wants to." That hit me like a punch to the gut. My dad wasn't giving up on her exactly, but he was exhausted, defeated. He'd tried everything he could think of, gentle talks, stern lectures, even suggesting couples counseling, but nothing seemed to get through to her. I didn't know what else to do. So, I started researching. I read articles about depression, substance abuse, and how to support a loved one who doesn't want help. But the more I read, the more I realized how complex and fragile the situation was. One wrong move could push her further away, and that terrified me. I wanted to fix things, to bring back the mom I knew and loved, the one who used to light up every room she walked into. But how could I do that when she wouldn't even admit there was a problem? The days turned into weeks, and things only got worse. My mom's drinking wasn't just a coping mechanism anymore, it was a crutch, one that seemed to be taking over her life. She started calling in sick to work more often, claiming migraines or stomach issues. When she was home, she either stayed in her room or sat in front of the TV, glass in hand, her gaze vacant. One night, I overheard my parents arguing. It wasn't the loud, explosive kind of fight that shakes the walls. No, this was quieter, more insidious, with sharp words whispered through clenched teeth. "You can't keep ignoring this, Diane," my dad said, his voice strained. "You're not just hurting yourself. You're hurting all of us." "I'm fine, Mike," she snapped back, her tone defensive. "You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" He let out a bitter laugh. "You're drinking yourself into a stupor every night, Diane. Our daughter is worried sick, and you won't even talk to us. How is that fine?" I didn't hear her response, but the silence that followed felt heavier than any words could have been. The next morning, my dad pulled me aside. "I don't know what else to do," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I've tried everything. She won't listen to me, and I'm scared. Maybe you can get through to her. She might listen to you." The weight of his words pressed down on me like a boulder. I was only 23. How was I supposed to solve a problem that my dad, a man I'd always seen as strong and capable, couldn't fix? But I knew I had to try. That evening, I waited until my mom was alone. She was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, an untouched glass of wine in front of her. I sat down beside her, my heart pounding. "Mom," I began softly, "can we talk?" She glanced at me, her expression guarded. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" "I'm really worried about you," I said, my voice trembling. "I feel like you're not happy. And I don't know how to help you." Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought I'd finally broken through. But then she shook her head, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "You don't need to worry about me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm fine." "No, Mom, you're not," I pressed, my desperation spilling out. "I can see it. Dad can see it. You're not yourself, and it's killing me to watch you go through this alone. Please, just let us help you." Her tears turned to anger in an instant. "I don't need help," she snapped, her voice rising. "I'm not some broken thing you need to fix, okay? Just leave me alone." I was stunned. I'd expected resistance, sure, but not this level of hostility. I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her see what she was doing to herself, and to us. But instead, I just sat there, silent, as she stormed out of the room. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling completely lost. How do you help someone who doesn't want to be helped? How do you pull someone out of the darkness when they're clinging to it like a lifeline? The answer came unexpectedly. A week later, my mom had a particularly bad day. She'd been drinking since noon, and by the evening, she could barely stand. My dad tried to help her upstairs to bed, but she pushed him away, yelling at him to leave her alone. It was the breaking point for all of us. The next morning, my dad sat her down and gave her an ultimatum. "You need to get help, Diane," he said, his voice firm but trembling. "If you don't, I don't know if we can keep doing this." She didn't respond. She just sat there, staring at the floor, tears streaming down her face. I don't know if it was his words or the look of desperation on my face, but something finally shifted in her. She agreed to see a therapist, and though the road to recovery has been anything but smooth, it's a road she's finally willing to walk. There are still days when I catch her staring out the window, her expression heavy with sadness. And there are nights when the temptation to pour a drink is almost too much for her to bear. But she's trying. She's really trying. And that's all I can ask for. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.